Hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris Orme. You are very welcome here to the final episodes for now of our breeding tips series, where we've taken a look at how a breeding save works, the idea behind it and how it actually physically plays. We then in video 2 stepped into setting up a breeding program and how I do that when I've got horses to seed it with, and what I mean by that and how it all comes together. Then episode 3 was about the kind of results I've gotten from these horses and what to expect if you can find a good horse to breed with and you've already got a good horse to breed from, what that looks like on an easy save, why it's more predictable, and exactly the results you're going to expect. And then in the last episode, we looked at a normal save where it's more random and it's more chaotic. Sometimes stats just don't come from either parent, but by and large, you're still going to get a more or less, I'd say, similar outcome. So you're going to get good horses from good horses. You're going to get bad horses from bad horses. If you've got 290 potential horses, then there's a good chance you're going to get a 90 potential fall. Doesn't always work out that way. It is that little bit more random, unpredictable, realistic, but yes, it can happen. And it's not as if you've got to fight to find it. So the other tricks that we show you in this series so far have been how to go to the betting and sort of get that sorted. We've also got an entire video on making money. We've talked about the auctions and how they might fit into your plans for a breeding save, as well as a regular save. We have shown how to repeat entire years so you can breed from more than one game-bred stud that may or may not retire at the end of that year. So in case you don't want to miss out on any, you've got a chance to repeat the year. And also how we repeat the actual foaling process and just have the same horses foaling time and time again in case you want to, save scum it and get your horses exactly how you want them. So we looked through all of that. We have had a few questions about what to do if we don't have horses to seed cropping up in the comments. A couple on Discord as well. I've had a couple of DMs there, and on Twitter at Chris Orme. You can always find me somewhere, either Discord, link in the description, right here on the channel on any of my videos. Leave a comment and I will sort of get back to you whenever I see that, which is normally pretty quick. I think you'll find that I'm on top of that right now. And also, as I say on Twitter, you can grab hold of me there. Either just send me a tweet or send me a DM and I'll answer what I can. But I've had a little bit here and there about what to do with horses who don't fit my lofty standards. Like, we've seen a lot of horses come through with about 40 to 45 ability, but they hit everywhere else. And yes, you can keep them. You can. If you've got anything 85% potential down to 70% potential, then 45 isn't too bad. Because with a good racing season, you will gain about 15 to 20% ability if things go well. So if you start at 45, that means end of your 2-year-old season, the first racing season you can have, you should be in the bracket of about 65% ability. And then at the end of your 3-year-old season, you can still make it to 85. 40 goes to 60, goes to 80. So 40 would be my absolute lowest. But as you've seen, those are, still good horses, but they're not really up to the other standard I'm getting. I'm getting those 50 to 60 potential horses, ability horses that still have top end potential. So they're still going to fill it out over 2 seasons, but we don't have to work as hard to get there. And all the other stats line up, so that's good. Finish application, yes, I do overrate it, but I'm used to having a full bar, and I don't like not having a full bar. And I'm closing in on like 250 horses by having full bars. Consistency. Yes, Marie W. won 28 grade ones for me, live on YouTube here. Throughout our series, she won them fair and square. Everything was great. 28 grade 1 wins with 10% consistency. Am I overrating things by not including horses without 100% consistency? Absolutely. Absolutely. It works for me, but feel free to ignore that and do what you think are the right attributes. Potential is 65, 60 okay? Yes, because if they gain potential between their 2 and 3-year-old season, as they normally do, you could still be running at the end of your 3-year-old season with a 75 to 80 potential horse, which is where you want them. I prefer that to be shown at 1-year-old, but if it's not shown until 3-year-old, so be it. If it's not shown until 4-year-old, so be it. If you're playing jumps, you might not get a horse that ever has good potential because other stats are kind of more important elsewhere. You might not get a horse that hits their peak until 8, 9, 10 years of age on a jump save. Whereas 3 to 4 is kind of the key point for me on a US flat schedule. And yes, that does partially come round to the fact that Triple Crown is for 3-year-olds only. And that's kind of my focus. So I breed and I look for things in a certain way to kind of take us in that direction. So always consider that a key piece of information. It works for me because my goals are set up a certain way. And my quality I'm starting with is so high, I'm not going to lower my standards just to accept a horse when I've got 10 others I could use who do hit every standard. But whatever works for you, works for you. There's been a lot of sort of talk about that and what stats I value that I shouldn't and how cruising burst is more important, and I agree. When you move over a mile, usually cruising burst starts kicking in more than finish application. But if I don't have a full finish application, it's like sprinters sometimes don't fight at the line because we don't have battling qualities, and that can be a big issue. But the longer a race is, something like cruising burst, which is how far above your top speed you can usually go, like that has a longer period to pay off than in a 6 furlong race. A mile 2 is much more important. Finish application is just for that finish. That final furlong to half a furlong, somewhere in that range, that's your finish application. That's your battling qualities. They don't apply. If you're not in a good position by the time you get there, it doesn't matter if you have them or not. But I always want to be in that position, and I'm only going to race those horses which do get in that position. Therefore, finish application is key for me. Extra speed, I'm moving from 70 to 80. We've had great runners at 60. Again, whatever works with you, just make sure that you know what you want and how you want to do it, and then set up your breeding saves to complement that goal. So when you import them into your racing saves, they are ready to hit those objectives. So that was one thing that I wanted to clear up there. The other thing would be on what to do if you don't have horses to see to save, and I answer this in the comments as well. But for me, it's buying out yearling auctions, it's buying out 2-year-old auctions, breeding auctions, Friday auctions. Anytime you see something that looks pretty good, 4-year-old or younger, it looks good, get it going as soon as you can. You know, go ahead, use the betting trick, get a ton of money, buy out all your facilities, make sure you got your breeding program set. Start breeding, finding those good game-bred studs as much as you can, but buy out as many auctions as you can to give yourself the best opportunity at getting good horses. And lower your standards. Season 1, if you don't have any seeding horses, you don't have any good horses to begin with, take okay horses. Take horses that are maybe, 60%, like 40% ability, 60% potential. Maybe you're just looking for 50% or more finish application. Maybe you're looking for 50% or more extra speed. Because when you take those horses and you breed them with a good sire, you're going to get a better foal in return. And then you can use those with other good sires that you found to again bring them up. And you're slowly moving up to match those good sires. To the point where it might take some time, it might take a few saves, but you do get yourself in a rhythm of slowly upgrading. Every 3 to 5 years, maybe, you'll have a couple of good colts and you're like, great. Put those on the transfer list. I'm good to go. Start up a new save, use them to seed it with a couple of fillies you've got on a transfer list, and suddenly you've got those 4 horses that you can breed, A to C, B to D, A to D, B to C, and suddenly, bang, you've got yourself another 4 good foals. And now you've got those 8 that you can use in a breeding program. And you find other good horses in this, and you breed traits you find into them. You've got to build your way up. But if you don't have anything to seed, don't worry. Check your starting horses, check your breeders' sales, because there's some good ones that come out of it. Check your weekly sales. Yearling sales, you can buy them out. And 2-year-old sales, you can maybe buy them out as well. If you've got enough money, just buy a ton of horses. Also, the pre-season auction. All those 2-year-olds are available as 2-year-olds coming into the start of the season that you see when you're starting a new year. Buy them all out. Give yourself a wide pool to select the best from. Keep going back into the betting and using that trick to refresh your balance so you're never running out of money. When your breeding program's up, you can start selling the yearlings that are falling that aren't good enough for you. You can start selling those as unraced 2-year-olds and make a ton of money back, and that will keep your money up. But that continues to allow you to keep hitting auctions and auctions and auctions. In fact, I'd probably not set up a breeding save so much as an auction save, where I would just be going through with a ton of money, buying all these auctions out. And any good ones that I find, the best of the best, I just keep putting onto a transfer file. And when I've got 16, then I'm going to start a breeding save and use those to seed. So there's ways of doing things. There are ways of doing things. So those are the 2 most common the most common complaint, the most common question. So I hope I've answered a little bit there to bring you through and understand a little bit more of my thinking and reasoning behind it. And again, just little bits. Take what works, ignore what doesn't. But like I say, right now we've got some good horses to breed from, so that's why we've set up the way we have. That being said, let's take a quick look here then at the horses we actually do have on those transfer lists. This is what my horses looked like on my first transfer list. I should say as well, this isn't the actual first transfer list. I think this is number 3 in total, but this is the first one I've kept. We've used all those other horses that we had on the original transfer lists. We've bred from them enough where we got to a point we couldn't go any further. We cleared the transfer list. We started again. We've done that twice. So there's probably another 100 or so horses which basically combined together to give us this first transfer list. And you will recognize some of these names. Like Bella is the start of that lineage where all those horses come from. Bella Maker, Bella Dat, and all the Dats after that. We got ski parties in here. We got some Tackianas sort of make it on here. Top Fang comes from, leads us to like Dat Fang and all the rest of those. Bella Makers in their Higgy Forest we've seen do really well. Tackiana actually makes this list. And we know Tackiana was a really good colt. And, Triple Crown winning everything has ended up being, a Saffron Fang, now just being a god horse, almost as a 3-year-old. 45 speed. A lot of stamina, but 45 speed as a yearling. 60 ability, 75 potential. 65 confidence, only 30 cruising burst, only 75 extra speed, 90% deterioration, 70 enthusiasm, but full finish and consistency. The bolded ones are the ones that I like. So they hit certain metrics. So 85 speed or above, anything pretty much above 10 in terms of stamina. Just because they're unusual, so I want to keep an eye on them. 60% ability, 80% potential. Again, anything really above 10% battling qualities. We've got 75 or above confidence, 60 or above cruising burst, 80 or above extra speed, and 70 or above enthusiasm. Those are what I look for. And then all these stats are added up, apart from deterioration, and that gives us the total score. If we get 600, that is a very well-rounded horse. That's why 600s and above are sort of put together. But you can see all these horses, and again, we've got more colts than fillies by far. It's actually 40 to 20, so a 2-to-1 split, colts to fillies. Not great. You can see here we got a lot of bare minimums. That 50 to 70, there. Humble Fail is 50 to 70 with 75 extra speed. Doesn't even have great speed here. 555, it's okay. It's not amazing, but you know, it's okay. It's okay. Tyrion, Red Hand, like these are horses we've used to seed with. Zagato, we've used basically to seed with. Bella, we've used to seed with. 90 speed, but 60 potential, 75 potential, 60 ability. Nothing major, nothing weak. Higgy Dat's up there. Like, this is where we started from. Only one horse had 80 potential or more, and that was Bellamaker. But realistically, if I were to be very stringent and really focus on what I wanted out of these entire 5 lists, not a single horse from tier 1 makes it. This list is gone. We look at the next list we started putting together. This is where the breeding saves actually kicked in. This is more from racing saves. This is now on to breeding save. You can see we're starting to move up. Now we've got 80s and 85s in potential. Now we're getting more extra speed in. There's a little bit more cruising burst. Yes, we lose some enthusiasm because it's difficult to find a game bred with good confidence and enthusiasm. But again, they all come from a few different horses. But again, we see names that we should know by now. Alexagon's in there. Comangel's in there. British Pearl's in there. Who else is in there that we might know? Nobody else really. Saffron Fang is. So there's your god horse. There's your amazing Triple Crown horse. 60 ability, 75 potential, 85 extra speed. Doesn't look anything special. I have rated them in terms of potential, then ability, and then the total. And even just out of the male horses here, the colts that we've got, how many horses are above Saffron Fang? How many are better all the way along than Saffron Fang? And yet that's the one that's won. That's the one that's exploded and developed over time. So what you're looking at from a young horse isn't necessarily what they're going to be. And Saffron Fang would not hit my very stringent rules for sort of paring down a horse. What I mean by that is, with all these horses, I've actually got an elite list. So with these 5 sets of transfer lists, now you can start seeing Down Angel and Camerigo have 90 potential suddenly. Now we've got a 630 and a 650 out of Down like that, who we've seen doesn't race well, but he's bred well. We got 650 and 630 overalls here. And that 55 will go to 75 at the end of the 2-year-old season. We should be able to easily max out to the 85 at the end of the 3-year-old if it doesn't gain more by that point. Down Angel could be a 90 potential horse at the end of its 2-year-old season, but it only has 70 extra speed. So there's still some stuff missing and needs to be refined. We need to interbreed and get what we want. But you're starting to see these horses have a lot more bold. And you're starting to see now 1 horse with 70 potential, 2 horses there. Compared to the first time, and we got 4 there, and we've got so many here. Like 8 or so. And then we move to our latest transfer list, and of course there's only 1 on there. Now, if I wanted to say that a horse had to have 60 ability, 80 potential, 50 confidence, enthusiasm, 50 cruising burst, 80 extra speed, and full here. So the only thing that Gabriel the Prince fails on, with a touch short on confidence. But if I were to hit those metrics across all of these horses, you get our elite list. And that's why you can't be too judgmental on a 1-year-old. Or a 2-year-old, which is basically a 1-year-old that can race. There's no changes really. Sometimes the speed changes. Sometimes a yearling will show their potential stamina instead of where they are. But yeah, realistically, there's not much difference between a 1 and a 2-year-old. So don't judge them. Judge your horses at age 3. Judge them at age 3. And if they're still not good by age 4, that's when you breeding barn judge them. Or just get rid of them. But we would have 5 horses from 4 full sets of 60 transfer lists. Which means we're looking at 280 horses plus the 1 we've got on the 5th transfer list. 281 horses, including such names like Bella and like Saffron Fang. And only 5 names absolutely hit my highest standards. So you're looking here, and yes, we've got speed, we've all got ability, they've all got potential, they've all got extra speed. They've all got some cruising bursts. Higgy Sweets is the worst, but mainly they've all got decent. We've got over 50 confidence and enthusiasm as well. There are no weaknesses to these horses. They're all going to run about the same distance. And if I interbreed them with each other, they're not really going to lose or gain anything. Like Higgy Sweets is a little lower than the rest in confidence, cruising burst. But like, where is the difference here? 10% enthusiasm here, 5% confidence here. Like, that's it. The 5% ability doesn't really matter. Yeah, it's got extra speed. But so did Down Like That, and he didn't race well. So don't buy too much into the stats. But like, these 3 are almost identical. And yet they've come from completely different horses. Completely different bloodlines. But they're pretty much the same horses. And there isn't a world of difference here. Now, the best 2 are Down Alex and Down Storm, but they both come from Down Like That, and I'm not going to interbreed those 2. So then I'd probably have to look and say, okay, I'll lose 10% cruising burst and 5% ability, but gain 10% enthusiasm here and reduce our deterioration and sort of just breed silent energy with Down Alex. And that might produce the best foal we've ever seen. But does that develop into the best racer? I don't know. So my elite list looks really nice. It really does. But if there's not room for some of these horses on it, like Saffron Fang, seeing what Saffron Fang has done, that means we can't be that harsh. So we look at Saffron Fang, and if Saffron Fang is like the minimum we want on this list, Where did it fail? Potential. Didn't have 80 potential. Okay, so maybe that's a 75 we keep. Cruising burst 40, enthusiasm 40. Okay, maybe those are our new low points. And then we can put together another list. So anyone with 75 potential. So on this list alone, let's say we got everyone from Comstar down. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Let's get everyone in. Great. So then we start looking at ability. And, okay, Saffron Fang had 60. Again, we do have some 45s on here. So if we kind of sort of take those out. And we keep looking. And say, okay, what if we did 55? Instead of 60. So we're getting rid of all these. We're not getting rid of those, are we? But we're getting rid of all these. So they failed for their reasons. And then you're looking at confidence. And again, maybe 40's our marker. Okay, we can't get rid of those for some reason. But maybe 40's our new mark. And then everybody else hits. So we do lose a bunch of horses from there. Cruising burst again. Let's say 40. We don't lose many there. Extra speed. Let's just say 75. I mean, Karma Halo's gone. Enthusiasm. Again, 40. I don't know why some of these deselect and then some of them... Oh, some of them no do. I'm just going to double click my way through them. Okay, where are we? Hey, excellent. So now you're seeing where these horses make it and where they don't. And there we go. Now we're looking at throughout the entire list. Throughout that entire list. I don't know why they're not marked. So we got Comastar. We got Oharith. We got Juniper Weeds. And we got Saffron Fang. So now we got 4 colts from that list who would make it. And again, you could go through the same and say, yeah, these horses all make it for me. You can just be like, yeah, 55s, 75s. It's kind of what I'm looking at. And then sort of 40 and above. So we can start putting in those. And then cruising burst as well. 40 and above. Extra speed, 75. And above, and then enthusiasm 40 and above, and none of them make it. They fall at enthusiasm because we don't have enthusiastic horses on the female side on our second list, it seems. Because that's what happens. You will lose 1 or 2. Normally, confidence and definitely enthusiasm from game breeding. You will see that happen. So you've got to find a way of making the cuts that make sense to you, but also don't miss out on potential stars. So Saffron Fang, like, that's a great horse to use as an example, because as a yearling it looked okay, but it didn't look special. I thought we could win the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness, and I just didn't think we'd get distance, and I didn't think it would be anything more than an average member of the bloodline. What a bloodline, but I didn't think it would be great. So Mariana, Marie W, Saffron Anna, Taki Anna, and no Saffron Fang. Like, all those horses tracing all the way back to Mariana, have run really well and done really well for us. And Saffron Fang blew me away by how dominant he's been. But he would not have made this list. So you've got to be very careful about what attributes you're looking for and when you're looking for them. So that brings me on to my next sort of point here of potential and cruising burst and speed and stamina. And why? Because these change. The speed bar will change. It'll look different every season pretty much. Stamina is not tied to the breeding indicator. That's just the average of sire and dam. That's all that is. But we've seen plenty of times we're running below or above our breeding indicators without any issues. So don't worry too much about the stamina bar. That'll only dictate the races you can run right now. That will change throughout the entire career. It will go up, it will never come back down. So you'll never be able to return to a shorter race, but you can work your way up. Speed changes every season. Don't worry too much about it. The longer the race, the less it really matters, the more stamina comes in. And they are tied. So the higher the stamina bar, usually the lower the speed. The higher the speed, usually you won't get that much stamina. So they're all relative to one another. Acceleration, start, they're important, but they're not really like the be-all, end-all. Don't worry overly much about those. And the jump bar, unless you're playing a jump save, does not matter. If you're playing automatic training like me, then these bars, again, really don't matter. You're looking for a green square, and if you're unsure, the head lad will tell you whether it can race or not. So as long as you keep an eye on those factors, you should be okay. And then the horse stats. When the horse is born, when it's foaled, nearly everything is decided. And nearly everything is locked in place. You will never see your battling qualities, constitution, confidence, extra speed, deterioration, enthusiasm, finish application, consistency, distance adaptability, going surface adaptability, juvenile constitution, maturity rate, training adaptation, jumping ability potential, jumping speed potential, or quirks change. What you see at 1-year-old is gonna be all the way through your career until you retire the horse or it just dies of old age. Cruising burst will move between 5 and 15% usually. That's kind of the range I've seen. That will move up between your 2 and your 3-year-old seasons. And it's only really useful, as I say, once you start creeping up to a mile and beyond. The longer the race, the more impact it can actually have. That is your real top speed. The higher that bar, the quicker your horse can run. The extra speed is when it's actually straining and where it can go. They combine in a weird way. If you have both of them quite high, you know you've got a really quick horse. And even though this colt isn't that great, we've got 60% cruising burst and 55 extra speed. I mean, yeah. That's kind of how good it is. It'll still win some races. It might not win grade 1s, but it could win graded races even with low potential because it has something here. So cruising burst can jump, but it only ever jumps one time. In my expectations, it's about 5 to 15% between the 2 and the 3-year-old seasons. This is, default and modded schedules in the US on flat tracks. It may be different for jumps. It may be different in other countries or in other mods. I don't know. I can only speak from my experience on that, but that one changes. The only other thing to change is potential. You'll gain ability and potential, or as they like to call it, absolute and realized potential. which, yeah, realized potential is just how good you are. So that's your ability. And your absolute potential is a weird way of just saying potential. Like how good you could be, that's potential. So ability and potential, that's how I call them. Like that changes. That changes race to race. You'll gain your absolute potential or just potential. You will gain that every year up to a certain point when you get older, and then you'll start losing. Your ability will go up until you hit that light green marker and you fill your potential for that year. Sometimes I do see it go down slightly at the start of a new year, very, very rarely. And when you, of course, your ability is declining and your potential is declining at the same time, sometimes you see that ability decline first. So 1 year you might have, as a 5-year-old, let's say, you might have 60 potential and you've only fulfilled, like right now, like 45% of it. Okay, that's great. And then the next year, you're actually full. You're 60 out of 60. And then the next year after, you might find yourself down at 40 out of 60. Because your horse is starting to get old and starting to deteriorate. That'll come from your deterioration. It'll come through your maturity rate, how quick you can get up to your peak, and then how long before, basically, you start falling off your peak. That's those two bars tied together. But if you don't have good bars, in most of these stats, you never will have. Your potential rating and your cruising burst can change. One of them only once. Your stamina will keep changing. Your speed will keep changing year to year. But make sure that you're looking at the right stats. And if it has low cruising burst, that doesn't mean it always won't. It can gain. 35% cruising burst doesn't look like much. But when it turns 3, that could be 50%. 70% potential might not look great. But the next season, you could gain up to 85 or 90. And then, if you're at 70 and you gain those 20 points a year, you can hit 90%. Suddenly, you've gone from a good but not great horse to a, oh my god, this is a world beater. So make sure you're looking in the right areas and you're thinking about things in those ways. Make sure you're not focusing too much on some of these abilities. And as I say, if I'm looking for a 2-year-old at the end of its 2-year-old season to max out at least 70 potential, then with that 20-point rule, really, I need them to have 50% ability. But if I look a year onwards, and this is something that I don't follow myself, but it's worth thinking about if it works for you. If I'm looking a year onward at a 3-year-old and I'm saying they need to have 80 potential, filled out, maxed, that means as a 2-year-old, they need to be at 60. Which means technically, and this is going to be rare that you're going to gain like that, but technically, you could run a 2-year-old at the start of their year that only has 40% ability. So it really depends on where you're looking for your horse to peak. And again, this is US flat schedule. This is Triple Crown. I'm looking at a mile 2, and I'm looking at certain stats to win those races. They're dirt races. They're left-hand turns. They're in the US. That's all I'm looking at. They're 3-year-old races. That's realistically the only season that matters to me, is when a horse is 3. In the UK, in a jump schedule, a 3-year-old won't win anything. You're looking 8 years, maybe 10 years of age, before they're competitive. So adjust to suit what your goals are. Don't just jump in and think, okay, I'm just going to race and see what happens, and apply your US flat schedule ideas to your UK jumps schedule, because that won't really work for you. What I would do is when I'm looking at here, if you want to play in Australia, take a look at the Australian schedule. See where the big races are, what all the grade ones are. What distance are they at? Run a game for 5 to 10 years and take a look at it. Maybe with one of your breeding saves in that country. And go and look at those races and who won them each year. How old were they? If you get a chance to look at them and buy them in an auction after they've won one of those big races, great, now you've got their stats to look at. What did it take to win that race? That's going to give you a better idea of what stats are important for your schedule, what ages you should aim to peak at, which will influence quite a lot of stuff, as well as exactly what your objectives are. Do a little bit of research. You want to play a jump schedule in the UK? Well, what are the big races? We need to look at all these different things. Like, what about Glorious Goodwood? Is that something that you really want to attack? Royal Ascot. What races there do you really want to prioritize? Are you just 100% in on the Grand National? Are you looking at other races? In the US, I'm just focused on the Kentucky Derby. If I win the Kentucky Derby every year, I'm happy. That's my goal. If I win the Kentucky Derby, I can pretty much win the Preakness. And if we've got a little bit extra distance, we've got a shot at the Belmont, and that will give me the Triple Crown. And if I'm hitting all those, the Breeders' Cup Classic is another great one to complete the Grand Slam. So I know my goals, and I'm able to hone in and say, yes, it's a mile 2, a mile 1.5, and then a mile 4. So I need a mile 2 horse with a touch of adaptability in terms of distance. That's my breeding distance. That's what I'm trying to focus this breeding program towards. We need good speed, good ability, good potential because they're huge races that gain international runners. And that just jumps the quality right up. Battling qualities is rare. I just tend to ignore it. Honestly, if it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. I don't care. Confidence, enthusiasm, they need to be, as close to or above 50%, and I'm happy. I don't need a ton there. As long as I can trust the horse to be confident enough, enthusiastic enough to run, and consistent enough not just to completely lose it even when they're in great form. Like, those three there are kind of my safety net of having good stats. Full finish means that when we're fighting for our lives at the end of the race and we don't have battling qualities, we're at least going to put up as much of a fight as we can. Deterioration really doesn't matter because I'm only looking at 3-year-olds. They've got to run a 2-year-old and 3-year-old. After that, I'm not really that fussed. So I can ignore that. But again, if you're looking longer term in a US schedule, or if you're looking around the world where horses run older, then by all means, focus on deterioration because that now becomes a bigger factor. Take a look at your maturity rate. That becomes a bigger factor. For me, I can ignore them, and I have been. What I really like then is cruising burst because we're over a mile, and extra speed. So if I got those with ability, potential, and a decent speed, now you can start looking at these horses and figuring out Triple Crown. If they made a mile 2, who would be good? And again, we can look at breeding. All these horses of 7 furlongs or above, I think have a shot at maybe making Triple Crown distance. Or at least Kentucky Derby Preakness. They can probably make that mile 1.5. So, okay. So we now lose these horses. I've got a good few horses there. And then you can probably discount the 7 furlongs and say, okay, they might not make it. And the milers, why not? They might make the Preakness, they might make the Derby, they're never going to make the Belmonts. If I really want Triple Crown, Farana, which shouldn't surprise anyone because the name ends in Anna, like Mariana, which gave us Marie W., and then Saffronana and Takiana, and Saffronana give us Saffron Fang. So we know that Farana should be in that category. And we can see right now that does hit my metrics and we're there. The cruising burst of 60 is really, really nice. Swing the lead, pretty decent. Not quite as good. And then that lady probably doesn't have the cruising burst. So maybe they don't make it. And then we're looking around and, okay, if you're just looking at the Preakness, maybe the Kentucky Derby, some of these other horses are good. If you want the entire thing, I think we've got 2 fillies. And this is a great way to look before you set up a game as well. I know if I breed from Farana, or if I race Farana, then Triple Crowns will either come from her or that continuation of an amazing bloodline. Because we can see the stats. And this is the importance for me of keeping notes. Because I can easily just get swayed by so many of these horses, and there's so many here, and I can think, Saffron Fang is the greatest stud ever, just because he's been the greatest racer ever. And if he runs like this, just imagine what his falls look like. But I can take a look at these stats and see, at the start of his 2-year-old season, he was average. He's made a big jump. It's made a huge jump. In fact, it's scary how much he's made. So we go here, we got our normal difficulty breeding save in the UK. We got that breeding save we were just in for the US. We go to our actual playing save, our racing save, and take a look at Saffron Fang. This is what he looked like. What I'm going to do is grab that and just put it in here. So 60% ability. So we were here. We've gained that 20% that we could. That 75 became just over an 80, which we've managed to fill. Never had battling qualities. The confidence is set in stone. But that 40 cruising burst actually jumped up to almost 60. So that was quite a big jump. But again, we hold our extra speed, deterioration, enthusiasm, finish, and consistency. But we can see a big jump in cruising burst, a tiny jump in potential. But being able to fill the entire thing was key. But still here, it looks like a very good horse, but doesn't look maybe as dominant as you would think he does. And then we can see here, with a speed of 85, that's actually climbed to 100, which is always a good thing. That 10% bar of stamina went all the way up to 65. We went from 6 furlongs all the way up to about a mile 2 to a mile 3 range, which now allows us to attack not only these mile 2s, which we've done, the Irish Champion, Travers, Belmont, and Derby Invitational, the Preakness, the Derby, the Florida Derby, but also allowed us to move to a mile 3 with the Takarazuka Kinen and the Belmont Stakes and a mile 4. It means that we can line up for the Arc de Triomphe for a mile 4, which is crazy to see my Triple Crown horse run the Arc de Triomphe in the same season. But it's also crazy seeing with these stats and how average he looked, just how dominant he is. 6.5 in the Quipco, Irish Champion. 6 3/4 in the Travers, which is the 5th biggest American race of the year for a 3-year-old. Saffron Fang won by 9 lengths at the Derby Invitational at Belmont. The Takarazuka Kinen, 5 lengths in Japan. Belmont, we won by 2.25 over that big long distance, which kind of makes me a little nervous with the Arc de Triomphe. But 6.75 in the Preakness and a mind-blowing 7.75 length victory in the Derby. Like, these are Secretariat numbers. These are greatest of all time numbers. We're setting course records, we're setting win margins, we're setting everything. With a horse that looked okay as a yearling and as a 2-year-old. But as a 3-year-old, when I needed them to peak, they peaked. So it's going to take me some time to figure out what my actual standards are going to be. Probably bump up from 50-70 to 55-75, let's say. Probably going to bump Cruising Burst and Enthusiasm up to 30-40 maybe. And just see. If Confidence and Enthusiasm go up and Cruising Burst is about 30, I think that puts us in a good range to grow the horse. And it means we're not going to lose as many as possibly I thought we were. But the standards I was using would only leave us with 5. And that's some very lofty goals to live up to. So I think we need to relax a little bit there, get some good horses in, and figure out what we're going to do with these horses on the transfer list. Because I've got way too many to seed new saves in. We've seeded with this a lot. We've seeded some with our second transfer list as well. People like Come Angel, Lexagon, also in that mix. So, yeah, I think that we need to, maybe I need to rethink my standards a little bit. And remember the lesson of Saffron Fang. And remember that for me, my goals mean I need to peak at 3. I've got until May 2nd in the 3-year-old season before I need my horse to be great. So maybe I need to stop judging so harshly at 1 and 2. But that's on me. That's something I've got to figure out. I hope that this has helped you sort of look at your horses in a different way. Maybe get your lines focused up more in terms of your objectives, figuring out what it's going to take to get there, and then building that profile of a horse that you think you're going to need to get all that accomplished. And that will be your breeding target. That will focus your breeding program a little bit more, perhaps. And I hope that the game blesses you with the Saffron Fang. I really do. Because, oh boy, it's been fun. It's been fun. And by the end of this season, I think it's going to be chaos. 20 million probably prize money for a 3-year-old is obscene. We're probably going to come out of it with hopefully all 12 Group 1 wins. Hold our 140 rating, which is the max you can get in the game. Like it's all on the table for Saffron Fang right now. And I hope that they do really, really well for us throughout the rest of this season. But it hasn't let me down so far. Not since I misbooked the first race, which was too short on distance. Was a grade 3 to begin their career, which is kind of ambitious. But I took the risk, and we only lost by half a length. Yeah. We moved up to 6 furlongs where we wanted to run that extra distance. We stepped down into a maiden race. We blew the competition away. We blew the competition away when we moved up to a mile 1 grade 2 at the beginning of the next season. Then our Derby prep was the Florida Derby. We blew the competition away there. We smashed the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness. We stole the Belmont to complete the Triple Crown. We've gone to Japan and Ireland and won those big races. We've come home and won the Derby Invitational and the Travers, big prestigious races. And now we head for the Arc de Triomphe. I hope your breeding program brings you that kind of success. I hope you found something that you can use, even if it's only part of it. Let me know in the comment section below what else you want to know. What I maybe have left out, what I skipped over somewhere, or what really helped you, or what you want to know more about. Hit me up, comment section below. Join the Discord in the description. Like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill by now. I'll see you next time, though, as we head back to racing and hopefully onto great things with Saffron Fang. But looking at this elite list, if Saffron Fang could do that, is there any one of these with the extra bonuses they've got to begin with who maybe can live up to those lofty goals? I hope so. We're going to find out in the future. But until then, y'all take care, stay safe, behave yourselves, and I'll see you soon.